Hello there, my sleep fellows. Tonight, I invite you to join me on a quiet walk through the halls of Hogwarts, where even the stillness seems alive with gentle magic. You see, within these walls there are countless rooms, each with its own personality and secrets. Some have been explored and documented in thick volumes tucked away in the library, while others prefer to remain in whispers, tucked between the folds of time, waiting for the right soul to discover them. Our story tonight takes place in one of those rooms, one that has never been marked on any official map of Hogwarts. Some say it was created long before the castle itself was completed, woven into its foundations by an ancient hand. Others believe it appears only to those who carry questions they've never dared to speak aloud. They call it the room that reads your mind. It is not like the room of requirement, which reshapes itself to suit one's needs. No, this chamber is different. It listens. The moment you step inside, it understands the thoughts that rest quietly at the back of your mind, the questions you've never put into words, and it answers them, but not always in the way you expect. Its answers may come as a vision, a memory, or a story whispered in a voice you almost recognize. Imagine it now, the castle just after dinner in the Great Hall. Outside, a soft rain taps gently against the high windows, turning the torchlight into a shimmering golden haze. The corridors are quieter now, the chatter of students fading into the background as they retreat to their common rooms. Somewhere in the distance, the fat lady laughs from her portrait, her voice echoing faintly down the hall. The air smells faintly of parchment, old stone, and the warm tang of candle wax. You walk slowly, your footsteps softened by ancient rugs, the walls around you lined with portraits that tilt their heads to watch you pass. Somewhere above, the ceiling furrows gently as the wind brushes against the castle towers. In this peaceful hour, it feels as though Hogwarts itself is breathing in rhythm with you, alive, but patient, content to let you wander. It is on nights like this that hidden doors feel closer to the surface, as if the magic holding them concealed has grown thin. Perhaps you've passed the door to this room 100 times without noticing. Perhaps tonight, with your thoughts drifting in quiet wonder, it will notice you, so let's take our time. There's no rush here, no hurry to chase answers. The magic we seek moves at its own pace, and it is in the slowness, in the gentle unfolding, that we will find it. The room that reads your mind is waiting somewhere ahead, behind an unremarkable stretch of wall or an ordinary archway. When we find it, it will feel as though it has been expecting us all along. Shall we begin? The rain is falling, the torches are lit, and the castle is listening. Tonight, the story opens its first door. Harry Potter had always found comfort in Hogwarts during the quiet moments when the bustle of lessons and the clamor of the Great Hall faded into a soft, peaceful hum. Tonight was one of those moments. He strolled along a dim corridor with a contented slowness, the gentle patter of rain outside filling the spaces between his thoughts. His green eyes caught the flicker of torchlight on the stone walls, and he felt the familiar warmth of belonging, the kind that only this castle could give him. Beside him walked Hermione Granger, her hands tucked into the sleeves of her robe, a book clutched against her chest. She had just returned it to the library, and despite the late hour, her mind was already turning over the next title she might borrow. Her brown eyes glimmered in the low light, not with urgency, but with the calm, deep thinking that came when she felt entirely at ease. Every so often, she glanced at Harry as if deciding whether to share a thought, but let the silence stretch, comfortable and unhurried. Ron Weasley trailed a step behind, his long stride carrying him without much effort. His red hair caught the glow of the lanterns, and his hands were stuffed deep in his pockets. There was a hint of a smile on his face, an unspoken amusement at something only he found funny. Perhaps it was the way the portraits were quietly gossiping as the three passed, or the sound of Peeves humming tunelessly somewhere above them. The three friends had planned nothing special for the evening, no secret meetings, no urgent discoveries, only a short walk after dinner before heading to Gryffindor Tower. Yet there was a shared sense of contentment between them, as if they were quietly aware that nights like this were rare and precious. They turned a corner and nearly bumped into Neville Longbottom, who was carrying a small wooden crate lined with moss. Inside were several sprigs of something green, their leaves curling gently as if stretching toward him. Neville's cheeks were slightly flushed from the cool air, and he greeted them with his usual warm, slightly shy smile. "Evening," he said softly, adjusting his grip on the crate. "Professor Sprout asked me to keep these in my dormitory tonight. They're temperamental in the rain." The others leaned in to look, curiosity mixing with the easy pace of their walk. Hermione asked a few gentle questions, her voice low, and Neville answered with quiet pride. Harry watched the exchange with a smile, enjoying the way the group's footsteps echoed together down the corridor. Somewhere deep in the castle, the magic shifted. It was not loud, nor was it visible, just the faintest sense of something unseen turning its attention toward them. If the castle had eyes, it was watching now, but none of them rushed. They simply continued on, wrapped in the slow, golden comfort of the evening, unaware that their path would soon lead to a door they had never noticed before, a door that was listening. The rain had deepened into a steady whisper against the high windows, casting silver patterns down the stone corridors. Harry, Hermione, Ron, and Neville continued walking without hurry, their conversation a low murmur that seemed to blend with the sound of the castle itself breathing in the damp night air. The torches along the walls flickered, not from any draft they could feel, but with a strange, slow rhythm, almost as if they were reacting to the group's passing. It was Hermione who first noticed it. "Wait," she said softly, pausing mid-step. Her eyes darted to the wall on their left, where a darkened archway stood between two tall suits of armor. "Have either of you ever seen that before?" Harry and Ron turned, and Neville carefully set his crate down to peer as well. The archway was simple stone, unadorned, leading into a shadowed recess that didn't seem to belong to any passageway they knew. More curious still, the shadows within weren't still. They rippled faintly, like ink spreading through water, obscuring whatever lay beyond. No door, Ron remarked, brow furrowing. It's just dark. But it wasn't just dark. As Harry took a slow step closer, the shadows shifted again, and for the briefest moment, he thought he saw a shimmer of light, like candle glow far down a corridor. It was there and gone, leaving the space looking empty once more. Hermione tilted her head, her expression one of quiet calculation. "That wasn't here yesterday," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "and I walked this way to the library." Neville frowned thoughtfully. "Feels odd. Like it's watching us." That last remark made Harry's skin prickle. He had felt that sensation earlier, a quiet awareness that didn't belong to any person in the corridor. It was as though the castle itself was aware, listening. Before anyone could reply, a soft hum drifted from within the shadows, a single note, so faint that at first it could have been mistaken for the wind. But it had tone, resonance, and it seemed to form words without sound. It drew Harry forward, almost without thinking. The moment he stepped past the archway, the air changed. The corridor behind him grew distant, muffled, as if he had stepped through a curtain of mist. The shadows folded away, revealing a narrow, dimly lit passage lined with stone shelves. Strange, old books filled the shelves, none he recognized from the library. Their spines shimmered faintly, and the lettering on them shifted, as if it couldn't decide on a language. The others followed cautiously, the hush of their footsteps swallowed by the passage. Ron reached out to touch one of the books, but drew back immediately. "It's warm," he whispered, "like it's alive." They walked slowly, taking in the strange corridor until it opened into a circular room unlike any Harry had seen at Hogwarts. The ceiling was impossibly high, vanishing into a faint silver haze. In the center stood a single wooden desk, perfectly ordinary except for the quill resting atop it. The quill wasn't in an ink pot. It was suspended in the air, moving of its own accord, writing on a blank piece of parchment. Hermione stepped closer, her eyes wide but steady. "It's writing something, but there's no one here." The quill paused mid-stroke, as though aware of her words, and then began again, faster this time. The letters were neat, but unfamiliar, flowing like a secret code. Then, before their eyes, the shapes shifted, reordering themselves into words they could read. "Tell me your thoughts, and I will show you the truth." The four of them exchanged glances. Harry's curiosity prickled alongside a quiet unease. This didn't feel dangerous, at least not in the way they knew danger, but it did feel deeply aware. Neville, perhaps emboldened by the room's calm, cleared his throat. I'm thinking about the greenhouses. I've been worrying about the plants I moved indoors, if they're all right." The quill twitched, and new words appeared beneath the first. "Your work will keep them safe. One in particular will bloom early." Neville's eyes widened, his voice soft. "That's exactly what Professor Sprout told me might happen if I looked after them properly." Ron stepped forward, half skeptical, half fascinated. "I'm thinking about food, treacle tart, specifically." The quill hesitated, then wrote, There is a slice waiting in the kitchens if you go now, Ron laughed quietly. Right, so it's a mind-reading quill? Hermione shook her head, her voice hushed but firm. Not just mind-reading. It's responding. This whole room is listening. As if to prove her point, the quill lifted from the desk entirely, floating toward Harry. Slowly, it dipped toward the parchment again, though he hadn't spoken. You have questions about what lies ahead. Harry swallowed. The words were true. He hadn't framed them exactly in his mind, but they were there, the constant wondering of what the future might hold. He let out a slow breath, deciding to test it. And can you tell me? He asked aloud. The quill wrote steadily. I can tell you what you already know, but have not yet accepted. The answer sent a faint shiver down his spine, not of fear, but of recognition. This was no ordinary magical artifact. It wasn't telling the future, nor reading thoughts in the usual sense. It was reaching into the quiet parts of the mind, the corners where truth and possibility intertwined. Hermione's gaze swept the room as though cataloging every detail. There isn't a library or a study room, she murmured. It's a chamber for understanding. Neville's eyes softened. Feels like it's choosing what we need to hear, not what we want. The room was utterly still, the only sound the faint scratch of the quill. Harry realized that whatever this place was, it had not been found by accident. The door, or the shadow, had appeared for them, and then them alone. He glanced toward the passage they had come through, half expecting it to be gone. The archway still stood, but the shadows beyond it swirled more thickly now, as if waiting to close at any moment. We should come back, Hermione said gently, sensing the room's nature. Not take too much at once. Some things you can't rush. The others nodded. The calm in the chamber was tangible, but it carried the weight of something larger, something that would unfold only when it was ready. As they stepped back toward the passage, the quill wrote one final line in neat, slow strokes. Return when your heart seeks answers, not questions. And with that, the shadows swallowed the archway once more, leaving nothing but a blank stretch of wall where it had been. The corridor outside was unchanged, quiet, rain-speckled light spilling across the stone. Yet each of them carried a sense that they had been seen, understood, in a way that went beyond magic. They didn't speak much as they walked back toward the tower, not from secrecy, but because the night now felt like a gentle thread that shouldn't be pulled too quickly. Somewhere deep in the castle, the mysterious chamber waited, aware and perhaps even listening still. The following evening, the castle seemed to wear a different kind of stillness. The rain had stopped, but the air was cool and heavy, as if something lingered in the atmosphere, an echo of whatever the four of them had found the night before. Harry, Hermione, Ron, and Neville met again in the common room, each pretending that they weren't waiting for the other to suggest a walk. In truth, they all wanted to see if the mysterious archway would reappear. After a few minutes of hesitant small talk, Neville broke the silence. I don't suppose any of you are thinking about heading down toward the greenhouses. His tone was careful, but his eyes betrayed quiet curiosity. Hermione's lips twitched in a knowing smile. It's worth checking, she said simply. They set off, keeping to quieter passages. The castle was in that strange evening state where most students had settled in for the night, leaving the halls dim and calm. But as they passed the lower corridors, something unexpected caught their attention. Not the shadowed archway they'd seen before, but a glow spilling from behind the greenhouse doors. "It's past curfew for the greenhouses to be lit," Neville murmured, frowning. "Professor Sprout always snuffs the lamps by now." The glow wasn't the warm yellow of lamplight either. It was green, a soft, pulsing emerald hue that seemed to move like breath against the glass panes. The four of them exchanged glances, and Harry felt that same tingling awareness as before, as though the magic here wasn't random, but waiting. They approached cautiously. The main door to Greenhouse 3, normally locked, was ajar by a finger's width. Neville reached for it, hesitated, then pushed it open. The scent hit them first, not the familiar earthy warmth of plant life, but something sharper, more luminous. It was as if the air itself carried a thread of mint, metal, and rain. Inside, the glow was stronger, radiating from a single table in the center of the room. On it stood a large clay pot, but the plant inside was unlike anything they'd ever seen. It was tall, with translucent leaves that shimmered faintly, and from its stem hung droplet-like buds that pulsed with that strange green light. Each pulse seemed to match the rhythm of their own heartbeats, though perhaps that was just their imagination. Neville stepped forward slowly, eyes wide with wonder. This isn't in any herbology text I've read. Not even in the restricted section's plant indexes. Hermione edged closer too, her gaze sharpening. "It's reacting to us. Look, the light changes when we move." Sure enough, when Harry took a step forward, the plant's glow deepened and the leaves turned slightly toward him, as if sensing his presence. Then, without warning, one of the buds burst, not with petals, but with a fine mist. The vapor curled into the air, sparkling faintly, and as it drifted toward them, Harry felt his thoughts shifting, not like legilimency, but as though memories were rising unbidden to the surface. He blinked and saw, vividly, a moment from his first year at Hogwarts, the day Hagrid had brought him his first birthday cake. It was so real he could almost smell the icing sugar. When the image faded, Ron gave a small start beside him. I saw myself flying my first broom," Ron murmured, his voice thick with nostalgia. "It's not just showing memories," Hermione whispered, her brow furrowing. "It's drawing them out and amplifying the feeling in them." Neville reached toward the plant, but as his fingers brushed the edge of a leaf, the light shifted from green to deep gold. The air seemed to hum faintly, and then a voice, not from any person present, spoke quietly in their minds. "Guard what you cherish, for it may be the key to what is coming." The plant fell still again, its light returning to that soft green. They stood frozen for a moment, each digesting what had just happened. That was real, wasn't it?" Ron asked, glancing between them. Harry nodded, felt like the same kind of awareness as the room yesterday. Hermione's eyes narrowed slightly, deep in thought. "If the castle, or something within it, is reaching out to us, then these events aren't random. First the quill, now this plant. They're connected. Neville swallowed hard, still looking at the plant, as if it might vanish if he blinked. It's not dangerous, not in the usual sense, but it's powerful. A soft rustling came from the far end of the greenhouse, breaking the moment. They turned sharply, but instead of finding a person, they saw a curtain of vines shift aside, as though parting for an unseen presence. Beyond, the glass wall rippled, not cracked, but bending in a way glass shouldn't. Through it, instead of the darkened grounds, was a faintly glowing path leading into what looked like a moonlit garden that none of them had ever seen before. "That's not the lawn," Harry said quietly. The glow from the plant pulsed again, brighter, and Harry got the sudden, inexplicable feeling that the path beyond was linked to whatever message they'd just received. Hermione took a step forward, but the vines slid back into place, the glass settling into its normal stillness. The plant's light dimmed until it was just a faint shimmer in the leaves. Whatever had been about to happen was over. They exchanged looks, the air still humming faintly with that strange energy. Harry knew, without saying, that they would be back here again, and soon. But as they turned to leave, Neville paused by the plant, lowering his voice. "I'll look after you," he murmured to it, as though speaking to a friend. And in answer, the plant's light waned just slightly, before going still once more. The four of them stepped out into the cool night air, each aware that the quiet grounds of Hogwarts felt just a little less familiar now, and that the true nature of this strange magic was only beginning to reveal itself. The days following their strange encounter in the greenhouse passed in a curious blend of normalcy and quiet anticipation. Classes resumed their usual rhythm: Transfiguration with Professor McGonagall, Charms with Professor Flitwick, but the four of them, Harry, Hermione, Ron, and Neville, carried an unspoken awareness of the secret they now shared. The memory of that glowing plant lingered in each of their minds, as did the brief vision of the moonlit path beyond the glass. Every so often, their conversations would drift back to the experience, though never in crowded places. The Gryffindor common room's quiet corners became their informal meeting spots. Hermione had begun sketching diagrams in one of her many notebooks, trying to piece together any connection between the plant's message and known magical phenomena. Neville, in turn, spent more time than ever in herbology, casually slipping questions to Professor Sprout without revealing too much. Harry noticed that even Ron, usually the most reluctant to indulge in speculation, was unusually thoughtful whenever the subject arose. One evening, after dinner, the four of them found themselves walking the quieter route past the greenhouses. The lamps inside were dark, as expected, and the night air smelled faintly of damp earth and stone. But as they passed, Harry felt something. Not a sound, not even a light, but a subtle pull. It was the same kind of awareness he'd felt the night of the first encounter, though fainter. He slowed, and the others followed his gaze. Nothing stirred, but Neville's brow furrowed. "I can feel it too," he whispered. "Like it's listening," Hermione said quietly. They didn't linger, but that faint pull stayed with them all the way back to the common room, settling like a quiet chord in the back of their thoughts. The following afternoon, after Charms, Hermione approached Harry in the hallway, a hint of urgency in her step. "I think I found something," she said, holding up a heavy, leather-bound book. Its spine was cracked from years of use, and the cover bore the faint, fading imprint of an unfamiliar crest. They slipped into an empty classroom where Ron and Neville joined them a few minutes later. Hermione opened the book to a marked page. "This is Herbological Curiosities of the Forgotten Era. It mentions something called the Lumiflora sentica, a plant believed to be extinct for centuries. According to the description, it could draw out a person's strongest memories and, in rare cases, communicate warnings or guidance." "Warnings," Ron repeated, raising an eyebrow. Hermione nodded. "It says here the plant was sometimes used by ancient wizarding communities to guard sacred places. But here's the odd thing. It also says that its presence often coincided with the appearance of alternative pathways." Harry leaned forward. "Like the path we saw through the glass?" "Exactly." Neville was quiet for a moment, studying the illustration on the page. The drawing was old, done in fine ink, but the plant's shape was unmistakable. The same translucent leaves, the same droplet-like buds. "If this is really what we saw," he said softly, "then it means someone, or something, has been keeping it alive here for a very long time." The discovery only deepened their curiosity. Over the next few days, they began to notice more subtle changes around the greenhouses. Once, Harry saw a faint shimmer on the grass outside, gone before he could point it out. Another time, Ron swore he heard a soft hum as they passed by after dinner. And one particularly quiet morning, Neville caught sight of a trail of fine, glowing pollen leading from the greenhouse door toward the castle before it faded in the sunlight. They agreed to make a plan to return at night when the castle was still and see if the path beyond the glass would reappear. When the night finally came, the air was cool and still, the sky clear but for a thin veil of clouds drifting past the moon. They moved silently, their footsteps softened by the thick grass. Reaching the greenhouse, they found the door exactly as it had been that first night, unlocked by a fraction. Inside, the glow was waiting for them. The plant stood tall in the center of the table, its green light steady and calm, as though it had been expecting them. The moment they stepped closer, the leaves shifted toward them, and the glow deepened. This time, there was no burst of mist. Instead, the plant's buds swelled slightly, and the glass wall at the far end began to ripple, slowly at first, then with a steady, liquid grace. The vines parted just as before, revealing the faintly glowing path. For a long moment, none of them spoke. Then Harry took a step forward. The air near the glass was cool, almost like standing by running water. Hermione reached out and touched the surface. It gave way under her fingers, as though the glass had turned to a thin film of light. Neville's voice was low but steady. "I think it's inviting us in." Ron shifted uneasily. "Or luring us in. Could be either, couldn't it?" Still, none of them moved away. Harry looked at the others. "We don't all have to go, but I'm going to see what's on the other side." "I'm coming," Hermione said at once. Neville followed with a determined nod. After a moment's hesitation, Ron sighed and stepped forward. If we get eaten by some magical plant monster, I'm blaming you. They passed through the rippling glass one by one, and the sensation was unlike anything Harry had felt before. Not like stepping through a door, but more like slipping into a memory. The air was cooler, the light softer, and when his vision cleared, he saw they were standing in a garden unlike any part of Hogwarts he'd ever seen. Tall, silver-leaved trees swayed gently overhead, their branches woven with strands of luminescent flowers. The ground beneath their feet was covered in soft moss that glowed faintly with each step, and somewhere in the distance, water trickled over stone. But most striking of all was the sense of stillness. Not silence. He could hear the rustle of leaves, the distant murmur of water, but stillness, as though time here flowed differently. They explored cautiously, staying close together. The path curved between the trees, leading them past strange blooms that seemed to turn their faces toward the group as they passed. At one point, Harry swore he saw faint shapes moving in the distance, shadows that flickered at the edge of vision but vanished when he looked directly at them. "It's beautiful," Neville whispered, "but it doesn't feel empty." As they followed the path deeper into the garden, the air seemed to grow cooler, the glow of the moss underfoot shifting from green to pale blue. Eventually, they reached a circular clearing where a small stone pedestal stood. Upon it rested a shallow basin of water, its surface perfectly still. Hermione stepped forward, curiosity lighting her face. This could be some kind of scrying pool. The others gathered around, peering into the basin. At first, all they saw was their own reflection, but then the water shimmered and images began to form. Harry saw flashes of the castle grounds, but altered, snow drifting over the greenhouses, the lake frozen solid, the trees bowed under the weight of ice. The image shifted, showing the same scene again, but this time the castle itself was half hidden under frost, its towers rimed in glittering white. The vision faded, replaced by a faint swirl of mist. In the quiet that followed, they exchanged uneasy glances. "That looked like winter," Ron said slowly, "but not just normal winter." Hermione's brow furrowed. It could be a warning. The plant's message, the path here, it might all be pointing to something coming. Neville looked back toward the path they'd taken. If that's true, then we need to figure out what this place is and why it's showing us this, before it's too late. They lingered for a while longer, but the water in the basin returned to its still, mirror-like state, and no amount of coaxing would bring the visions back. Eventually, they made their way back to the entrance, passing through the glass and into the familiar air of the greenhouse. The plant's glow had softened again, its leaves resting as though tired. The moment they stepped outside, the door clicked shut behind them. As they walked back toward the castle, the memory of that vision pressed heavily on their minds. The night was calm, the moon bright, but each of them knew that the image they'd seen was not just a dream. Something was stirring, something tied to Hogwarts, the greenhouses, and perhaps even the strange, timeless garden beyond. And though none of them said it aloud, they all felt the same quiet certainty. They would be called back there again, the four of them, could hardly focus during the following day's lessons. The vision from the basin in the hidden garden clung to their thoughts like a shadow, whispering of danger, yet giving no clear path forward. By evening, they were back in their familiar corner of the Gryffindor common room, parchment and books spread out before them, the fire casting long, shifting shadows on the walls. Hermione had taken the lead in their research, surrounding herself with stakes of herbology texts, magical history tomes, and even a few books on ancient protective enchantments. If this garden is connected to the Lumiflora Centica, she began, then it's not just some forgotten place. It might be tied to a defensive network, a magical safeguard Hogwarts has kept secret for centuries. Ron leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. Right. A safeguard that shows us terrifying winter visions. Sounds brilliant. Neville's voice was quiet but firm. It might not be meant to scare us. Plants like that, they respond to intent. If it wanted to warn us, maybe that was the clearest way it could. Harry looked between them. So, what do we do? We can't just ignore it, but we also can't exactly tell Professor McGonagall, by the way we stepped through a magical greenhouse wall into a hidden garden and saw the castle frozen solid. Hermione bit her lip. If we tell any professor, they'll lock the place down before we can learn more, and I think, whatever's coming, the answers we need are in there. They discussed possibilities late into the evening. Neville wanted to focus on mapping the garden, marking every path, every plant, every stone structure. Hermione suggested returning to the basin to see if repeated visits changed the vision. Ron, after some reluctance, admitted he thought they should explore deeper, beyond where the path ended, just to know what's out there before it decides to come to us. Harry listened, weighing each idea. In the end, they agreed to divide their next visit into 2 tasks. Neville and Hermione would document the garden's layout and notable plants, while Harry and Ron would investigate the unlit areas beyond the main path. 2 nights later, they made their move. The moon was thin and pale, casting little light as they crept from the castle. This time, the greenhouse door was shut tight, but as Harry reached for the handle, the Lumiflora's glow shimmered through the glass, and the latch clicked open on its own. Inside, the glow was stronger than before, its light spilling across the floor in thin, curling strands. The wall at the far end rippled almost instantly, as if the plant sensed their intent and wasted no time. Passing through the liquid glass surface was less disorienting this time, though Harry still felt that odd, dreamlike weight as settle around him. The garden was just as they'd left it, silver trees swaying or gently, moss glowing underfoot. But now they were prepared. Neville pulled out a small parchment scroll, enchanted with a simple self-inking charm, and began sketching the paths they took. Hermione noted the properties of plants they passed, muttering observations under her breath. Harry and Ron split from them at the first fork in the path, moving toward an area where the glow zoomed into soft shadow. The deeper they went, the quieter it became. Even the sound of water seemed distant. Ron stopped at one point, glancing around. "It's too quiet here," he said softly. "Not even wind." Harry nodded. The trees here looked different. Thicker bark, leaves that seemed to absorb rather than reflect the faint light. Between them, the ground was covered in darker moss, and pale fungi glowed faintly in clusters. They followed a curve in the path until it opened into a small clearing. At its center stood another stone pedestal, but this one was cracked down the middle, its top broken off entirely. The fragments lay scattered nearby, overgrown with moss. Ron crouched beside one, brushing the moss away. "Looks like there was something carved here," he murmured. "Maybe another basin?" Harry examined the base of the pedestal. The stone was etched with faint lines, almost like runes, though they were worn nearly smooth. Before they could investigate further, a faint rustling came from the trees. Both of them froze. The sound grew louder, moving in a slow, deliberate circle around the clearing. "Harry," Ron began, but the sound faded as quickly as it had come. The stillness returned, leaving the air heavy. They exchanged a look, silently agreeing not to linger. As they retraced their steps, Harry caught a glimpse of something between the trees, a flicker of movement, almost like a cloak vanishing into shadow. Meanwhile, Neville and Hermione had made discoveries of their own. When they regrouped near the basin, Neville was buzzing with quiet excitement. "There's a whole section of plants I've never seen before. Some of them shouldn't even survive in this climate. It's like the place has its own magical environment," Hermione added, "and I think the paths themselves are enchanted. The further we go, the longer they seem to stretch, even if we turn back. I've been marking distances, and they don't add up." Harry told them about the broken pedestal and the cloaked movement he'd seen. Hermione's brow furrowed. If there was another basin, maybe it showed different visions. And if someone else is here... She trailed off, the implication clear. Neville glanced toward the shimmering entrance. "We can't just stop now, but we need to be careful. If there's another presence here, we have to figure out whether it's guarding the place or hiding in it." As they made their way back to the greenhouse, the plant's glow seemed to follow them, pulsing faintly in the corners of their vision. When they stepped through into the cool night air of Hogwarts grounds, Harry felt the same quiet certainty as before, only now it was sharper. The garden was no longer just a mystery. It was a choice laid before them. They could step away, forget what they'd seen, and leave the vision of a frozen Hogwarts to fade like a dream. Or they could return, again and again, risking the unknown to piece together the truth before winter's shadow fell. When they reached the common room, the four of them didn't even need to discuss it. The choice had already been made. They would go back, they would explore, and no matter what waited for them in that silver-lit garden, they would find out why it had chosen them. The wind in the hidden garden had a different weight that night, thicker, heavier, almost electric in the way it pressed against their skin. Harry felt it the moment they stepped through the shimmering greenhouse wall. The silver-lit trees swayed without sound, their leaves curling inward as though bracing for something unseen. Even the Lumiflora Centica's glow had shifted, warmer at the edges, but with a deep, pulsing core that throbbed like a heartbeat. They had returned with a purpose. Neville carried an enchanted lantern for mapping. Hermione had prepared detection charms. Ron gripped his wand tighter than usual, and Harry was determined to finally find answers about the cloaked figure he'd glimpsed before. The plan was simple: reach the broken pedestal and push further beyond, no matter what they found. The path was longer than they remembered, the air colder. Hermione stopped once to mark their progress, only to frown. "It's stretching again," she murmured. "We've been walking 10 minutes past where the pedestal should be." Neville glanced at the trees. "It's guiding us, or delaying us." When they finally emerged into the clearing, the pedestal was different. The cracks were still there, but now faint silver lines ran through them, glowing softly. The broken top pieces they had seen before were gone, as though someone or something had taken them away. Ron muttered, "Well, that's not suspicious at all." Before Hermione could reply, a ripple moved across the air above the pedestal like heat haze in winter. The glow intensified until a shape formed, tall, cloaked, its face hidden beneath a deep hood. The figure stood perfectly still, but the garden around them seemed to bow toward it, as if acknowledging its presence. Harry stepped forward cautiously. "Are you the one showing us the visions?" The hood tilted slightly, and though no face was visible, Harry felt the weight of a gaze. Then, a voice, not spoken aloud, but pressing directly into their minds, filled the clearing. "You seek what should remain buried." Hermione swallowed. "We're not here to cause harm, but we saw Hogwarts, frozen. If something's coming, we have to know." The figure's presence grew heavier, the silver glow deepening into shadow around its edges. "The storm is not of this time. It is a fracture, a wound in magic, born long ago." Neville frowned. "You mean it's from the past?" The figure's voice seemed almost reluctant. "Once, this garden was a bastion. The plants here, creatures of light, held back the winter curse. But when the curse was broken, a fragment of it lingered. It has waited, gathering strength in the cracks between seasons." Harry's thoughts raced, "And it's coming back." The hood inclined once, slow and certain. "If it takes hold again, the castle will fall into stillness, not destroyed, but bound in frost, locked in an hour that never ends." Ron shivered, like literally stopping time. The figure's voice dimmed, almost fading into the rustle of leaves. "You have already seen its echo. The vision you were given is not prophecy. It is memory, and memory can return." Hermione stepped closer, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. "So how do we stop it?" For a long moment, there was no answer. Then the silver glow of the pedestal brightened, and a shape began to rise from it. Something small, crystalline, and faintly pulsing. It floated toward Harry until it hovered just before him. "This is the seed of thaw," the voice said. "It was planted here when the garden was sealed, to keep the last warmth alive. Only in the heart of the storm can it break the curse. But if you take it from here, the garden will fade." Neville's eyes widened. "Fade, as in disappear?" "Its magic is old. Without the seed, it will sleep again, perhaps for centuries." Harry hesitated. He could feel the warmth of the crystal even without touching it, a steady heartbeat in the cold air. "If we don't take it, Hogwarts could." He trailed off, the image of the frozen castle clear in his mind. The figure gave no answer, only stood as still as stone. It was a choice, unspoken but absolute. Ron broke the silence. Harry, I know it's not exactly my area, but I think we all know you're going to take it. Hermione glanced between them. If we do this, we can't waste time. The moment we remove it, things might change. Paths might shift. Neville nodded grimly. And we'll lose this place. Harry reached out, and the moment his fingers brushed the crystal, a wave of warmth surged up his arm. The garden's glow flared so bright it was almost blinding, and for a heartbeat, he felt as though he were standing in two places at once, the Silver Garden and the frozen Hogwarts from their vision. Then the light dimmed. The crystal was in his palm, light but thrumming with contained power. The cloaked figure's voice returned one final time. When the first snow falls and does not melt, go to the highest tower. There you will see the storm's heart. The wind in the garden rose sharply, pulling at their cloaks. Leaves swirled around the pedestal, and the glow of the plants began to fade. The shimmering entrance appeared far ahead, pulsing urgently. Neville called out, "It's closing! Come on!" They ran, the garden dimming with every step. By the time they reached the wall and stumbled back into the greenhouse, the shimmer was almost gone. The last thing Harry saw before it vanished completely was the cloaked figure standing alone in the clearing, head bowed. In the cool, still air of the greenhouse, the four of them stood catching their breath. Harry looked down at the crystal in his hand, its glow faint but steady. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. The choice had been made, and the storm, whatever it was, would come. But now they had the one thing that could stand against it, and they would be ready. The air in the greenhouse felt strangely still after the Silver Garden's magic faded. A soft, lingering chill clung to their cloaks, though the real winter night outside had not yet touched this space. The steady tick of water droplets from a high pipe was the only sound for a moment, as if the world were holding its breath after what they had just done. Harry closed his hand around the crystal, now dimmer, but still alive with a faint, warm pulse. Its quiet rhythm was almost comforting, a small reminder that despite the loss of the garden's glow, they carried a piece of its life with them. Hermione's eyes followed it, her expression torn between wonder and a pang of sadness. Neville broke the silence first. "It's gone, isn't it?" The garden, his voice was quiet, not accusing, just heavy. Harry nodded slowly. "For now." The figure said it might sleep for centuries. Hermione, still watching the crystal, whispered, "But it trusted us enough to give this. That means it believes we can stop the storm." Her tone was calm, but there was something fragile in it, like she was steadying herself with those words as much as reassuring the others. Ron, who had been pacing in a small circle as if burning off leftover nerves, stopped and looked at Harry. "So what now? We just wait for the snow that doesn't melt?" Harry glanced toward the frosted glass panes of the greenhouse. The moonlight outside was steady, peaceful. "We wait," he said, "but we prepare. When that first snow falls, we'll be ready." They left the greenhouse slowly, stepping into the cool corridor that led back toward the castle. The faint scent of earth and herbs clung to them, mixing with the distant warmth of the main hall's fires. Each step felt softer now, as if the urgency of the chase had faded and they were walking back into the familiar rhythm of Hogwarts life. As they passed through the courtyard, a gentle wind brushed their faces, not the sharp, biting wind of the vision they had seen, but a mild one carrying the faintest scent of pine from the forbidden forest. The stars above seemed sharper tonight, as though the sky itself had cleared after some unspoken storm. Inside, the castle was quiet. Most students were long asleep, the torches casting a slow, swaying light across the stone walls. It was the kind of silence that wrapped around them like a blanket, the sort that made even the echoes of their footsteps feel softened. In the Gryffindor common room, the fire was still alive in the hearth, burning low but steady. They sank into the armchairs without a word. The flames reflected in the crystal as Harry turned it over in his hand, the light within it faintly answering the glow of the embers. For a while, no one spoke. It wasn't an uncomfortable silence, more the kind that follows a day too full to put into words. Neville leaned back, his eyes closing briefly, and Ron rested his chin on his hand, gazing at the fire as though it might tell him something. Hermione finally broke the quiet, her voice low but steady. "We may have lost the garden," she said, "but we gained something more important. Knowledge, and the means to stop whatever's coming." Harry looked at her, then down at the crystal again. "And when it comes, we won't be alone." The warmth of the fire, the quiet hum of the crystal, and the steady breathing of his friends began to weave together into something peaceful. The sense of danger hadn't vanished. It lingered, a shadow on the edge of thought, but it no longer pressed down on them. Instead, it became a quiet awareness, a reminder of what they'd need to face when the time was right. Outside, the night deepened, but inside, Hogwarts stood warm and safe, for now, somewhere beyond the castle walls, the first threads of winter were weaving themselves into the air, slow and patient. But here, in this moment, they had returned to calm, and in that calm, there was strength. The crystal rested in Harry's palm, pulsing gently, its rhythm steady, like the quiet heartbeat of the castle itself. The fire in the Gryffindor common room had burned down to its last embers, the glow so soft it seemed more dream than light. The castle was utterly still now, no shifting staircases, no creak of ancient beams, just the deep, restful silence that Hogwarts only wore in the quietest hours before dawn. Harry shifted in his chair, the crystal still resting lightly in his palm. Its faint glow was the only thing in the room brighter than the dying fire, a small, steady heartbeat of light that seemed to hum in time with the quiet rhythm of the night. Hermione had curled into her seat, head resting on her hand, a book open but unread in her lap. Ron had given in to sleep entirely, his head tilted back, mouth slightly open, snoring softly. Neville's breathing was slow and peaceful from the armchair nearest the fire. There was no urgency now, no rush, only the soft, shared comfort of knowing they had faced something strange and beautiful together and returned safe. Harry's gaze drifted to the window. Beyond the glass, The sky was painted in layers of deep blue and silver, stars winking softly as though the castle itself was part of their constellation. A thin wisp of cloud passed the moon, scattering its light like spun silk across the grounds. The black lake shimmered faintly in that pale glow, calm and still as if cradling its own secrets. Somewhere in the distance, the castle's old stones gave a slow, contented sigh, as though settling into their centuries-old watch. It was a sound Harry had grown to love, a reminder that Hogwarts, with all its mysteries, was also a home. He let his eyes close for a moment, feeling the warmth of the crystal in his palm. Whatever lay ahead, the storm, the strange snow, it would come in its own time. For now, there was only the gentle peace of this moment, the quiet heartbeat of the castle, and the unshakable comfort of being here. If you're listening now, safe and warm in your own space, you can rest knowing that the magic of Hogwarts is never far. Its walls, its light, its quiet strength, they are always there, waiting to welcome you back. So breathe deeply, let the calm wrap around you, and drift gently into dreams where the castle's windows glow softly in the night and the magic never fades.